to be. And I'm really interested to chat about this. I just had Brady from Bonzo Finance call into the show. I'll bring him up here in just a second, but getting the perspective on from the borrowing and lending side is going to be very interesting. And it's very great to chat with Brady because, when we talk about someone that has a really good view on the ecosystem overall, I would say, Brady's definitely a person that has eyes in many places. So Brady, it's great to have you on the show. And obviously big day today, big day for retail. Maybe just really quick, get your kind of hot take on the pack launch today and the impact that it has on the ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. No, it's a super exciting day for retail. I think one of the most interesting things with regards to the pack launch recently was the SEX listings that were included. So there's 2 centralized exchanges, it looks like, that were part of the launch. And then in addition, the sauce token as well, which I think is pretty new for the ecosystem. I know for a long time, everybody's been talking about how HTS listings on centralized exchanges have been lacking a bit. And it's really cool to start seeing that be introduced. And with the introduction of that too, as our project starts to come online in Q3, it's definitely something we're going to be investigating.
Absolutely. And I think that that's kind of a big trend here is like, no longer are these token launches on Hedera like so insular in the walled garden of Hedera. Like this is something where, it felt like in half an hour, there was already millions of dollars of volume traded on this one drop. So I was chatting with Mark about this just earlier on the show at Hashpack about this, but I wanted to ask you this because again, you're at a really kind of unique point in the ecosystem, having, worked at Hedera and Swirlds Labs for so long, and then now being on the borrowing and lending space with Bonzo Finance. And we've chatted about that, but forward looking in the ecosystem, it really does feel like the events of today change things in a lot of ways. And I want to maybe get your thoughts on, reflecting in the past, but also now looking forward, how does this change future token launches of projects? When we think about a more robust DeFi ecosystem with, borrowing and lending, potentially, renting NFTs or like all these different other components, centralized exchange listings. How do you think this impacts the future of these different kind of token releases on Hedera? What does this year look like from that perspective?
Yeah, no, it's we've come such a long way. Like thinking back at Hedera, starting 5.5 years ago, and even literally just like 2 years ago, it was a completely different network, a completely different ecosystem. We have wallets, we have DeFi, we have NFTs. Everything's built out incredibly strong right now, and we're on this incredible trajectory that everything continues to grow. And so it's different, and it's moving very quickly. So I'm excited about that. And I think Grelf said it best earlier, where he mentioned that all of that really is contributed to the HBAR Foundation, who I think is doing a really good job. I'm excited for DeFi Spring. That's going to be definitely a fun and exciting thing for the network, for retail, for projects. And yeah, for the future sort of state of token launches, I do think it sets a bar that's a little bit higher than maybe what we've had in the past. It certainly adds more work and complexity, I think, to projects that are trying to build and integrate themselves in the ecosystem and make if they are token based, make their tokens available to broader audiences. But as long as everybody starts putting in the work and keeping up with that high bar that's being set, I feel like Hedera's positioned very well on the retail side of things, and super excited about that.
Yeah, I get that sense, and I mean, we touched on this too. When I've had you on the show before, is just there definitely is that shift. You can feel that shift at Hedera LLC and Swirlds and the foundation. Really, kind of. I always say the people who are really going to shape this network are the people who really use it and build on it. And I think we're watching that in real time. I think that the influence that the community has is a lot more powerful than I think people understand. And we're kind of seeing that play out. And I think that that's just been a really healthy thing. And I think that that announcement from the HBAR Foundation, the DeFi Spring stuff, it feels like we're potentially in that like all at once kind of threshold. Like, are you getting that sense a little bit? Like it's been very kind of flatline, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, is this the moment? Is this the DeFi Spring? Like, are you getting that sense?
Yeah. The way that I like visually see it in my mind, I think, is when the DeFi ecosystem was first starting out, there was this huge sort of push that I think started by HBAR Foundation with regards to grant funding and
Yep.
securing integrations, and the Swirlds Labs team doing a lot of work on the technical side to achieve EVM equivalence, including all of the like EVM tooling and libraries and environments and everything that developers need to be able to port over existing applications onto Hedera. And there was this massive push at the beginning, and I do think it feels like it kind of like peaked and kind of was like you said, flatlining, but not in a negative sense. It just felt like we reached that like first pivotal thing. And now it feels like, okay, we hit that, everything was good. Now we need to do an infusion of effort and investment through grants and new ecosystem integrations and things that are going to take us to like that next level. And so I do think like DeFi 2.0 is a great descriptor of what we're entering right now, because it does feel like we're taking it to that next level.
Absolutely. And something that I've said to people, and I think you've spoken to this quite a bit, which is like, it doesn't matter how great all that stuff is or how powerful Hedera is or how cool the governing council is or the use cases or whatever. It's to work our way up to that top 10 or top 5 on CoinMarketCap. We're still going to have to go through the same struggles that everybody else in that top 5 and top 10 have been through. One of those struggles is, of course, with the crypto press and all these different types of things. And we've been getting, comments on the show. Like one just came in, Cointelegraph is scared, whatever. And it's like, it's these kinds of things. I actually talked about the tweet that you sent out today, but just clearly you have experience interfacing with the press and different stuff like that. You understand kind of what those nuances look like. And so as it stands right now, Hedera's relationship with the likes of CoinDesk and Cointelegraph and some of these press outlets that do, tinfoil hat, suppress Hedera. I was curious to maybe get some of your thoughts on that, some of your observations, like grappling with that. Where's your head at with all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I'm trying to understand it myself. I hate putting the tinfoil hat on and starting to come up with like conspiracy theories, but there's a number of things that feel off in a sense with sort of how the reporting has been done historically. And, crypto is tribal. And I do feel like there are many people who have personal interests and investment in certain projects or otherwise. And it can be a very sort of like incestuous environment when it comes to the investment side of things. So yeah, I guess long answer, like I don't really know what's going on.
Gotcha.
I do want to see more. I mean, I think if we continue to build and we continue to make progress and grow adoption and get the integrations that we need and keep on this trajectory, it's one of those things where you can't ignore us at a certain point. And so I think the best strategy is to just keep doing what we're doing and amplify on the front of things that are going to be newsworthy and just have people take notice.
1,000%. And something else that you hit on regularly that, I think that a lot of people don't understand is, on the flip side, sometimes there are these top 10 lists or there's these different rankings of different things, and Hedera is omitted. And I think that, fairly, sometimes it's for reasons that are, tinfoil hat reasons. But I think most of the time it's just, again, this struggle for, awareness and integration with some of the tools. Like when you're a journalist and you're assigned a story of like, hey, it would be great for us to get a top 10 list of, networks with the best TVL or whatever it is. That journalist just logs into the portal that whatever their employer provides to search up this info. And sometimes like Hedera is just not integrated with that. So is it the case that you think that sometimes on the flip side, these journalists just literally are not exposed to Hedera or to some of this information just because Hedera is maybe not integrated with some of these platforms?
100%. There's a significant number of analytics platforms that exist across Web3 that are the go-to. RWA XYZ is one for tracking RWAs. There's Artemis XYZ. There's Santiment, Dune Analytics. There's a number of sort of key go-to places to find analytics for public crypto networks. And I almost feel bad for Twitter journalists or legitimate journalists or people who are sort of tasked, like you said, with building out reports about this data, because they're going to these places and they're pulling the data that's available to them. And in a lot of cases, just Hedera is not integrated into them. I know it is a big priority for the various foundations that are, supporting ecosystem development for the network. And so, I anticipate Hedera being integrated and us coming online. Probably as part of, DeFi 2.0, it's within that sort of category. But I don't blame the people building the reports. It's just because they don't have the data in front of them, and they're not going to go to, Hashscan or random sort of Hedera insulated data analytics place to get it. They're going to go to where everything's available to them in one spot.
Absolutely. And I think that's some of where the nuance gets lost is sometimes it's very fair to criticize a particular crypto publication where, for example, they're provided a press release ahead of time and they publish something completely different. It's like, okay, there's something wrong there. But when there's like these lists published and stuff, it's always safe to first assume that they just don't have the information. And it's on Hedera to integrate with, you said like RWA XYZ or some of these other platforms that most people don't know about because most people aren't crypto journalists. So I think that's really the key thing is what can this community do to effectively like lobby for that? What would you say is the best call to action for the community to kind of help this along? Where's the best place for the community to kind of educate themselves on this stuff? Is there any kind of buttons and levers the community can use to make this stuff happen? Or are we really just kind of doing all that we can right now and it's just a matter of waiting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as a foundational thing, whenever you see these reports, whether it's like an infographic showcasing TPS or a full report, by like Greylock that talks about RWAs, like always just look at the fine print and the source of where that data comes from. And there's typically a website there, if you're doing a report or an infographic, you're always citing your sources for that. And go check and see if Hedera's there. And, in these cases, it's not. And so instead of sort of directing the effort towards the person who created the infographic or the report and being upset why they didn't choose Hedera in it, instead direct it towards like, oh, hey, Hedera is not integrated into this analytics platform. And then maybe thinking through ways of how to let that analytics platform know like, oh, hey, I'd love to see Hedera data showcased in what you're providing. And I do think if there's demand for it by users from the analytics platform, they're going to probably prioritize that a little bit more than, a network that they'd integrate that doesn't have demand from users. And so staying positive in approaching it is really important, and not, being upset or angry, but showing interest in having that available on their platforms is probably a good thing.
That's a great point. I think that to contextualize that, it's like when you see one of those lists and if you're an HBAR and you see one, you're like, it's like, take a minute, look at the sources and see what they're using to get that data. Go check and see if Hedera is on there, and maybe it's just not on there. And the best response would be, hey, your chart's missing Hedera, but it's okay. It's not your fault. Hedera is just not integrated in with this platform. The foundation's working away on it. Generate that social proof, because if the HBAR Foundation is really the tip of the spear for this getting going, it's like they need that social proof. Like they can't just go to these platforms and be like, hey, integrate Hedera. And the platform goes, well, nobody wants it. It's like if people want it, and as you said, in a positive way, that just kind of helps things move further. So that's what it's about. It's about understanding where the data is coming from. And if Hedera is not in that data stream, just through positivity saying like, hey, we want Hedera on this. And that moves the needle, I think.
Exactly, yeah, and I empathize with the frustration though, because
Yeah.
I'll see those things and I'll get frustrated too, and then I'll be like, all right, stop, think about it for a second,
Yeah.
look at the source. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many replies I've like deleted after 3 seconds of like, okay, I got it out of my system. I feel a little better now.
my drafts folder is just full.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's hilarious. Well, yeah. And then I was going to say too, like, this is great stuff, but I'm also curious just before I kind of wind things down here, I wanted to ask you, how are things going at Bonzo? I know you're doing the testnet stuff, everything's rocking and rolling. So I'm curious to kind of see like, how's that been going for you guys? And what have you, like, any insights you guys have? What's the next announcement people should look out for?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. No, things are going really well. Community continues to grow rapidly, just in terms of like Discord numbers and engagement and Twitter followers. And we're running a sort of campaign right now where if you join our Discord and get some testnet tokens and use the Bonzo Finance testnet dashboard, and then post about it on X, you're able to get a whitelist spot for the NFT collectibles sale that's taking place in June. And so,
Oh,
we're building out that allow list of accounts, and we're really trying to look for a wide distribution of people who can collect these NFTs. And there's utility involved with them for the protocol, and that's going to be sort of announced in the details within the coming week or so. But we're really excited about that. That's kind of the core focus over the next couple of weeks.
that's exciting. And I think that, one theme that we touched on when I last had you on the show was like the unique aspect of the Hedera community, kind of like some of these concepts are very new for people. How's that learning curve been going, do you think, with the Hedera community when it comes to borrowing and lending and diving in and people starting to explore those mechanisms and get that understanding? Do you think that kind of learning curve is going at a good rate?
Yeah, so one thing that I really like about this sort of campaign that we're running for an allow list spot is that it is educating the community at the same time. So as part of it, they're required to go get a testnet account in their hash pack and supply assets to the protocol, test assets and borrow assets from the protocol. And they're learning about the functionality by doing that because it's a full simulation of what it will be like on mainnet with real assets. And so, through playing with the platform, I think it's an amazing way to learn about the tech. I think in Web3 in general, I ran a program, for example, at Swirlds Labs called Learning by Playing, and it was getting folks to learn about Web3 protocols who maybe didn't have the most experience with them by playing with them. And I think that's just the best way to learn. You're going to start to naturally ask questions about it, be curious, experience delight, for certain activities that you do. And so, we want to try to emphasize that when it comes to education. And then obviously, we'll keep doing tutorial videos and snippets and walkthroughs and, everything related to education. And I know Head Start is also doing a lot on the education front. They've combined the, a vertical of lending and borrowing, and everyone's teaming up to try to help support some educational initiatives. And that should be coming out, over the next few weeks and up to the end of the rest of the year. So there's a lot of effort by a number of different people, I think, on the education front, and it is super important.
Love it. I think that's awesome. Well, Brady, I appreciate you stopping by and the convo and all this stuff. Your insights are always valuable. And yeah, before I move on, was there anything you wanted to let people know about, or any shout outs or anything like that?
No, all good. Really appreciate you having me on the show, and always appreciative of your work.
Right on. Well, it's awesome stuff. Well, I'll be keeping an eye on Bonzo, and I'm looking forward to that mainnet launch. I think it'll be I think there's a bunch of different borrowing and lending stuff, and I think once that happens, it'll be another one of these like big moments for the ecosystem. Of the one thing I thought about and I talked about earlier was like, man, imagine if we had like NFT renting or borrowing or something for the pack launch, and it's like you wouldn't have to necessarily buy a bunch of these pack tokens, you could like rent them out to people that want to snatch that airdrop or something. So it's just thinking about how these things are going to happen in the future with all of these other mechanisms underneath. It's like just creates those next orders of magnitude of value, of accessible value on the network. I think it's just going to be like really, really crazy. Really, really crazy. I always say it's going to be 10 times bigger, 10 times sooner, and 10 times dumber than we think it's going to be.
Dude, I really like that. That's a tweet. You need to send that.
Oh, this is the problem. I've tweeted it. Nobody liked it. So
I'll go back and find it. I'll like it for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hell yeah. All right, Brady. Thanks. Take care, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Bye.
All right. So it's been a show.